Teachers of Reddit, what was the best excuse for being late that turned out to be true? I was the kid. Physics, 11th grade. The day prior to this day, my neighbor passed away and her son was a friend of mine and also in this class. Terribly long story, but it was a suicide by hanging and I was the one who found her. I had nightmares all night and skipped the first half of school the next day. When my physics teacher saw me later, she asked where I was that morning. Before I could explain, she said, "That friend was looking for you and concerned. He seemed more worried than he should have been and was a little upset about you not being there. The guy's mom died but he still went to class and didn't tell anyone, but was worried about me. I couldn't tell her what had happened at that point, so I just said I overslept. I hope you get past the nightmares, or at least got help for it." I had a student whose father had died and had not done any homework or prep for the geography class. From what I heard, the teacher scolded him for not doing so, but the student didn't want to say anything, presumably sensitive issue. So his best friend shouted at the teacher, "Don't you have any shame? His father died last night," and the teacher said, "I don't care." There was an audible gasp and I was in the next room. Needless to say, that teacher is no longer employed here. My auto teacher let me practice removing and adding the tires on his vehicle. The next morning it was about 20 minutes into first period and no sign of him. He comes running into the classroom out of breath and his hair is all messed up. He points at me and says, "What is a torque wrench used for?" I respond with, "I don't know." He says, "I know you don't know." Turns out one of his tires came off while driving down the highway. Honesty, that's on him. You're an idiot if you don't check behind the student on something like that. She had to take her sister to school and drive her mom to rehab. She was always late to class because her mom just wanted to sleep in. Problem was, if the mom was late or did not go, she would have violated her probation and gone to prison. I never marked her late. If she missed anything important, she could come in at lunch or after school to make it up. You sound like an amazing teacher. Thanks for all that you do. Student here. I headed into school early to get some studying done in the library before my night class. I was one exit away when I was caught in a 3-car accident. Most of the expressway afterwards was gridlock with only one lane left open. I did eventually make it into my lab class 15 minutes late, with a few scrapes and bruises. My professor's reaction was simply, "Oh, that was you." Not a student, but one of my teaching assistants when I ran a preschool in West Philly. "Sorry I missed yesterday. My friend shot my mom." Naturally, I'm a little speechless. "Oh no, it's okay. He was aiming for someone else." When I was a manager at a pizza place, one of the employees had the same excuse and attitude, except he was the one who got shot. He lived in North Philly though. "It's cool," he said. "My bad." Well, okay then. I was one of about 20 kids who were late to school. We showed up at the school office as a group, and when questioned why we were late, we said the school bus blew up. They questioned, "So the engine blew up?" The kids, "No, the whole bus, in flames. It blew up." There was much conference between the teachers, all of them thinking we embellished the story. Next thing you know, one of the admin staff has the news website open. Very obvious image of an entire bus on fire with a bunch of kids in our school uniform standing in front of it. Our late slip for class reads, "School bus blew up." If that happened, I would walk home. Told me he got pulled over by the cops for wobbly driving on his bike and they thought he was drunk. Turned out he was just dodging all the slugs on the street. Good man. Watching out for the sluggies. They like to traverse the walkway in front of my house at night, so I always have to shine a flashlight so I don't step on them. Former student here. "Sorry, boss. My stepdad tried to kill us last night and I had to deal with the cops." Professor just looked at me for a moment and said, "Dude, do you want to go grab a drink and talk about this after class?" Man, my English prof was a bro when I was in college. A guy in my college class missed class one day. The next day he came in with his eye covered up and medical paperwork in hand. Apparently he got pecked in the eye by a chicken. School sporting event. Kid on our team was late because someone stole his windshield wipers and it was snowing out. Kept having to pull over to the side of the road and wipe off his windshield. Whoa, that's a real bastard that's wiped his wipers on a snowy day. Not teacher, but pupil. I was in a car crash on my way to school. About 5 cars involved because some jerk decided to overtake us since we slowed down coming to a turn. So a trip to the hospital to get checked, and then school 3 hours late. I had small cuts all over my face from glass flying everywhere and had a really sore shoulder. But my teachers wouldn't believe me until police showed up because they forgot to get a statement from me. Apparently some of the other involved people died. AMD the jerk got 8 years in prison. Hey Mr. Teacher, see I have my face all cut up because of glass from a car crash. I hope you are okay with that. Now you're lying bro. You did that yourself to get an excuse. After 9/11, my small town high school received bomb threats every week for 2 months. And they decided to make us attend school on a Saturday. Myself and about 5 others showed up for our classes. And every teacher said something like I can't wait for the excuses on Monday. Most of the excuses were something along the lines of family plans or whatnot. But one kid was made read his dad's note aloud to the class because our first period teacher thought it was hilarious. In the most down south accent you can imagine. It went something like, my son ain't too smart, but he knows you ain't supposed to get punished for someone else being a dumbass. Bought him a 6-pack, so he was drunk. You all can FCK off. I wish we had smartphones to record back then so I could share it. I'm not the teacher, but we were told that he had a paramedic student who on their way to write their final exam rolled their car into a creek, picked up whatever books they had out of their car and ran the rest of the way to class. Obviously got there late and in tears. You better believe they had a different exam date. I missed my SAT once because the school bus got stuck in the ice. It was a residential school, so they didn't take snow days. When I was student teaching, I was late because there was bunch chickens in the middle of the road. They wouldn't move at all. This is in the middle of a city of 200,000 people. Freaking chickens. I finally get to school and profusely apologized to my mentor teacher, and I told her why I was late thinking it sounded ridiculous. She said, yeah, those chickens are freaking buttholes. They surrounded my car in the McDonald's parking lot last year. Don't worry about. Yeah, those chickens are freaking buttholes. They surrounded my car in the McDonald's parking lot last year. Don't worry about. They were protesting the McChicken sandwich. I had a 6-year-old turn up late to her lesson and blurt out, sorry I was late. I had to color in a bunny. Seems fair. Can't blame her. Coloring the bunny is an important job after all. In high school I biked to class. One day I hit a rock and ate absolute crap. I obviously got to class late. Before I could say a word my teacher stopped class and said, thank you for finally joining us. Why are you so late? I raised my heavily bloodied hands and elbows. It must have looked bad because she audibly gasped and rushed me to the school nurse, apologizing non-stop the entire way. I'm not a teacher. In my hometown, if you walked into anywhere late and said the phrase sorry, grain train, you were never challenged. It was extremely common for 50+ carriage trains to run through the middle of town. Where I am, we have a similar problem with farmers transporting huge loads on the tiny 1.5 lane roads round here. In their defense, they will pull in when a tailback forms and let people pass, but quite often we're talking a tractor with 2 trailers loaded 2 cars wide with hay or whatever it is. Those kinds of large laybys are few and far between. MTV paid me $50 to fill my backpack with cement and carry it around for the day. I accepted that excuse. Student later regretted it, as a replacement backpack and college textbooks far exceeded $50. But he got his moment of fame and I didn't penalize him for his tardy. Gotta live a little. Someone found a newspaper article on this. Turns out it was $200. He earned $100 for the first day and $100 when he returned the next day. I remembered $50, but it was 19 years ago. So I was right to believe him. He still lost all his stuff. Thanks cement, and I remember him telling me it wasn't worth it. What kind of idiot doesn't take his books out first? Bear on the backyard. No access gate. Animal control had to trank it from the room and drag it through the house. Made the news. Got to retake the test I missed after sending her the news article. Taught a group of seniors first period. It was towards the end of the year. I had a class of around 30 and only 5 were there when the bell rang. Halfway through class the rest of them show up. They went out to Cracker Barrel for breakfast and brought me some back. All was forgiven. I was the student. My neighbor had a really social goat, and she figured out how to escape her pen in order to come over and hang out. She escaped and followed me to the bus stop, and when the bus came, she tried to follow me onto it. I couldn't actually get on the bus without her being right behind me, so I had to get off, bring her home, and call my dad to bring me to school. My neighbor had a really social goat is the best thing I've read today. Thank you. LOL. I'm Pink, a fair-skinned student, age 10, went with a friend to the Holi festival at a nearby Hindu temple where she was covered with red powder and dyed bright red from head to toe. Her mother, another teacher at the school, had made her sit for hours in the bathtub to soak it off, but even after another round of early morning shower scrubbing, she arrived at school a pleasant shade of pink. Technically, she wasn't late, but she stayed in her mother's classroom until the bell rang. Teachers' kids basically live in a ruleless society or an extremely strict one. I had a chemistry professor show up about 15 minutes late, just when people were about to leave. He shows up and explains that he was just in a car accident. His car had been in a rollover and he still showed up. He said he was okay. He drove a Volvo. My best friend and I used to roller skate to school, and one day we both forgot to put our shoes in our backpacks. So we skated to the vice principal's office and got to skip first period to go home for shoes. We stopped at Taco Bell on the way back for breakfast, because we figured we were already excused. I had a teacher in high school that would tell us if we're gonna be late to pick up coffee because 2 minutes late is the same as 15. UK, a student couldn't submit an assignment on time as the Wi-Fi was down on the megabus. Cheers for all the love, and I'll be sure to tell the student his megabus mishap is relatable across the globe. Standard, to be honest. We had an exam in my class and the teacher got a message from a student saying that he was going to be late because his car had a flat tire. The student was known to party. The teacher didn't think it could be true, so as a joke the teacher asked him to bring the tire back. He brought the flat tire back in the middle of the exam. Needless to say, the professor didn't expect that. That student had been partying, drives to school, takes off tire, punctures it, and bobs your Auntie Mary. Not me, but one of my good friends. She went to the Royal Military College of Canada, where they wear their uniforms and there are often tourists visiting the campus. Apparently, it was completely normal to be waylaid by tourists looking to have their photos taken with students in uniform that all they had to say when they walked in late was tourists, and the professors would let it slide. She always wondered how many family photos she was actually in over her time spent there. This is so unbelievably Canadian to me. Not a teacher, but I was training a new hire at a job and the guy came in 45 minutes late stating he got halfway to work and realized he didn't have shoes on. It was winter and like 15 degrees outside. I did that in high school once. Mum got so mad at me. Literally today, child missed my first hour class. Note said car accident on the way to school and would be coming late. Kid comes for second hour, has pictures on his phone of the rollover accident. WTF. Kid, go home, rest, take care of yourself. I have another one. Although this one happened to a classmate when we were in college training to be teachers. She missed a really important class, came for just the last 10 minutes or so because her neighbor knocked on her door while in active labor asking for help a little while before she was supposed to leave for class. Classmate walked back to neighbor's house with prego neighbor and delivered her baby in the living room while on the phone to 911. Paramedics came and mom and baby were fine, but classmate needed to go home and shower change first because she was covered in blood. Not school related, but my mom was in an accident where her car rolled and got totaled on the way to work. She said the trooper who gave her a lift had never in their life had someone ask to be brought to work after a car accident, and my mom took a selfie with the trooper. She worked her whole shift. Her only complaint was her coffee spilled when the car flipped. No injuries at all. Flock of wild turkeys in the road. Not always school, but this happened more than once in my life. For those of you who have never found yourselves in this situation, there is no way out of it. Wild turkeys will move when they dang well decide to do so, and only then. A kid missed my first period class one morning, but was in school later that day. When I asked him why he hadn't arrived in time for my course, He said his cow was birthing its calf that morning, so he'd picked being in the barn over English. Made sense to me. His essays weren't going to win any ribbons at the county fair, but his calf could. I had a teacher who showed up about halfway through the class. Apparently her car had slid. Intense snowstorm the night before, and she had walked the last mile or so. That's dedication to students. I am a teacher, but this happened when I was a student. Does it count? In high school, a kid came late to history class. He was a joker, so when someone asked him where he had been, he goes, "I was kidnapped." Everyone laughed, until he goes, "No really." Turns out 2 guys kidnapped him and tossed him into the back of the minivan he was using for his morning paper route. They drove him around while they robbed something. I can't remember what happens after. I think they just drove the van somewhere and got away. I was the student. When I was in college, I opened my front door to CSWAT teams and D agents outside of my house. The one who looked at me was holding some kind of AR. I went back inside. From what I heard, there was a multiple sting operation that happened around my town and my neighbor's place got raided. I missed half of my classes that day. Dang ye, that's when you close the door and go back to the bed. When I was in college, my psych professor told us that the only excuse for being late was a funeral procession. Any other reason, you wouldn't be allowed to come in. A few weeks into the semester, I was headed from one building to another, which involved crossing the main road. Lo and behold, there was one very long funeral procession going by. I got a short video of it as proof, then stood on the sidewalk to let it go by. Unfortunately, the procession made me 5 minutes late to class. I knocked on the door, and the professor came over to start to tell me off. I showed her the video. "Well, I'll be damned. Come on in." And then you could just save that video for any future professors like that. My car got hit by lightning. It did. In the school parking lot. Her tires were melted to the pavement. She had to go out and deal with the tow truck, call her parents, etc. It was pretty dramatic. Jesus. My car was hit by lightning twice and it never melted my tires. That feels like some fantastical threat from a mythical god. Obligatory, not a teacher, but I'm an admin at a music school. I had a mom frantically call me and let me know her daughter would probably be late or miss their guitar lesson in a couple hours cause she couldn't find the kid. I was just kind of like, okay, well, I will let her teacher know. Got another call about an hour later from the same mom. She found her kid, but apparently the daughter went to her friend's house and decided to dye her hair green. They live pretty classy, so I did let them know they could still come in for their lesson. Mom said she would call me back and let me know in a minute or two. Never called back. Her daughter showed up for her lesson about 5 minutes late with this bright green coiffure. I gotta admit it looked rad as frick, but also kind of a confusing thing to be an audience to the build up. Not a teacher, but a kid walked into my class one day and literally just said, "Sorry, I'm late. I didn't want to be here." He wasn't wrong, I suppose. As an educator, I'd give him credit for honesty. My best friend at the time was doing a carer's job in preparation to later do nursing. He lived the train ride away at the time, but it was okay because work was 5 minutes from the train station. Someone jumped in front of his train as it was approaching the station. Everyone's stuck on the train whilst it's established if the person can be saved and if it's a crime scene on the tracks. Hours later he gets into work a little cheesed off but apologizes and promptly finds out it was one of the patients who had made him late for work. It was a semi-secure hospital for adults with dementia. I missed the teacher's part, oops. I sent my manager a pic of my car on fire on the side of the highway letting him know I wouldn't make it in. One of my organ students told me he was late arriving for his lesson because he got stuck behind a lengthy funeral procession en route to the cemetery. I knew he was telling the truth because I had played the organ for the service earlier that morning and the church was packed. After that first paragraph I had some really wild ideas about what you would be teaching to your organ students. My best story ever. I taught in a hardcore inner city school. My student comes in at 10:30. I was like, "Dude, where were you?" "Oh, my bus was late." "Yeah. No. Why would your bus be 3 hours late?" "Well, miss, there was a drive-by shooting." "OMG, are you okay? Someone shot at the bus." "No, mom. A kid shot a gun out of the bus. We got pulled over. The cops had to search everyone. The kid with the gun was literally the last kid to be searched. True story. You can't make this crap up. Kindergarten teacher. One of my students is just a very, very heavy sleeper. They often arrive late and miss our first class. After nap time, they will remain asleep no matter what we do. Music, tilting the bed slightly, asking them questions, even gently standing them up. Nothing. Most children can't help a cheeky grin or something when they don't want to wake up, but we get absolutely no response from this little one until they naturally wakes up. Nothing medical, just sleeps like a rock. I think it's great that your kindergarten still has nap time. My child is in kindergarten and, although I can request he be sent to the preschool classroom for a nap, they don't nap anymore. He's so tired by the time he gets home. Had a college algebra teacher show up late or no show almost every class. The other students thought it was hilarious because if there's no teacher for 15 minutes you can leave. So we had no class a huge chunk of the semester and it really aggravated me. This is pre-algebra and I was not understanding the math at all and the girl trying to tutor me didn't speak English well and my grade for the first time ever in my life was suffering. And I'm paying for the class. One day, teacher showed up about 20 minutes late and I'm one of the few people who didn't take off early and he angry walks in, slams his briefcase on the desk and says I apologize for this semester. I have cancer. I'm dying and then left. I don't know what happened to him tbh. Not me but in my class. This was in college. Student turned in work late after not showing up for 2 classes. 2 classes amounted to a full week so it was noticeable. Professor looked at him and said I hope somebody died for you to be this late. Does my dad count? Honestly I've always heard you can hear a pin drop and never really thought anything of it, but yeah you could hear a freaking pin cut through the air after that. Not school, but I got robbed at gunpoint and my car stolen the previous night and was talking to cops detectives until the early hours of the morning. But being the dedicated corporate slave I am I showed up to work the next day, albeit an hour or so late. Even in public accounting they understood and even said you know this is clearly an appropriate reason to not come into work right? Looking back, I probably should have taken that day off. If anything this made my co-workers think I'm some crazy person for just brushing the whole incident off as no big deal and coming into work. Your brain was probably running on fumes at that point. I can understand not thinking it through and showing up at work. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.